Hello, folks. Remember the other day when I said I'm generally not getting sick these days? Well, life has made a mockery of me, sir. It is very, 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 very painful throat time. I think I'm fighting it off because, I've had it in the past where I've been bedridden for days with things like this, but I think I'm okay. I think we're getting there. Anyway, it's Hobby Nightmares time. Let's jump in, shall we? If I need to take a little bit of a break for a second or two, if the editing skips a little bit, that's because I need to take a little break to rest my old vocal cords there. But let's jump in, shall we? With Dave. Alright, he says, "Greetings, North. This is a short one. Hope you and yours are keeping well. I've been a long-time listener of your channel and I've enjoyed your content immensely. Hobby Nightmares on a Friday evening has been a staple of my weekly routine for some time now. I swear I get more painted whilst listening to you rant and rave about the hobby at large. Oh, are you going to be happy this week if my voice holds up? Honestly, I don't know how you manage a relationship, fatherhood, a job, running a house, and running a YouTube channel. Either you have clones or a master of time management. Either or, that is very impressive, and if I may say, underappreciated." Oh, cheers, man. Yeah, it is about boundaries and time compartmentalization, right? So I have set amount of hours a day to do everything that I'm going to do for work. So, it can be lesson plans, teaching, 2 hours lesson plans, 3 hours teaching, 2 hours on YouTube, and that's generally my day, and that's like 7 hours, right? So as long as you break it all up, you can do it pretty easily. It's not a big deal. Anyway, backside kissing out of the way, let's get on to the nightmare. I first got into the hobby when I bought a copy of White Dwarf 222, if I recall correctly. I don't know why, but something about the artwork drew me in. This was the late 90s era for reference. As I poured through the pages, I became fascinated, to the point it was dropping apart. When my parents saw my interest in this magazine that I spent £3 on, they did not care. Okay. Now, this happened to me too, right? I think I've said it before about when I've had a catalogue in the past. So my family was not very well off, put it that way, right? Like we were doing okay, we were doing fine. We had a house, we were just fine. We weren't poor, but we didn't really have disposable income to throw at Warhammer all the time, right? So I couldn't get White Dwarf, but I did get the free Christmas catalogue, right? It had a crossword in it. It had one or two articles in it, and it was basically just normal paper, right? It wasn't even just stapled together. I got that for free from my mum because she went into Games Workshop and got that, and I had it for so long that it just fell apart in my bag, in my school bag. I took it in every single day, and I read it cover to cover for months. Turns out later on, this gets a bit darker. My mum actually went to therapy a bit later on, and she shared with me one of these things that a therapist said that she should share with me, and that was when I was younger, seeing that I had this passion for this thing that she couldn't support me in made her break down and cry a lot of the time because she just couldn't get me a White Dwarf, or she couldn't. It was literally milk or White Dwarf. Well, we need milk, right? That kind of a thing. So she was literally supporting a nice house, and a normal house, but it's nice, and getting to work, school, everything that I need, but extra stuff, Christmas only. And that Christmas was a good one because Games Workshop did step in and help her out, which is why I worked for the company later on, because those guys are my heroes, right? They literally stepped in when my mum needed it over Christmas and made sure that I had good stuff for Christmas at a decent price rather than getting ripped off or anything like that, right? They gave her a few freebies there as well, so, that's how the company should be, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on. It was only when I wandered off during a trip to the local shopping centre that they later found me at Games Workshop, much to my mother's disappointment. Her sour face softened when she found me painting a gene stealer, next to a boy with a mother with a similar bearing to my mother. Those boys and mothers ended up becoming lifelong friends. Fast forward a few decades, the boys are now brothers, and the mothers have fallen out about something neither of them can remember. I recently got back into the hobby with the Age of Darkness box set. We both loved Space Marines. How do I lure my friend back without being too forwards? We both have families and careers to manage. If you were in my shoes, how would you manage this? Thanks, Dave. Alright, P.S. Thanks for all you do. You're a credit to the world at large. Well, thank you, mate. Big praise. Cool. You gotta be honest, dude. Be honest about what you find cool about 40k. Whenever I've gotten somebody into 40k or any video game that I want to play, it's always been, hey, this is cool. This is why I like it. Would you like to play it with me? Most people will just say yes, right? Be honest and open about your intentions, and don't be ashamed of the hobby that you play with, man. It's not worth it, right? You should literally go out there, have fun. That's what you should be doing, all right? Cool. Just be honest. Just be upfront. This is what I want to do with my time. Yeah? If he's not into it, what's the worst he's going to say? No. Right? He's not going to say, no, get out of my house. Get those models out of my house. No, he's going to be like, no, I can't at the moment, mate. No, I can't. You just say, okay, fine. And away you go. Also, join a club. Go to stores. Go to these places where other hobbyists are. You will find friends. That's what the hobby is about. That's what it is, right? So, don't limit yourself just to this one guy. There's a whole hobby sphere out there for you to talk to. Anyway, moving on. Alright. This next one is from James. He says, hey North, call me James. This is a small hobby nightmare that occurred to me a couple of years back. At the time, I was living with my sister's family in a rather small house. All the space I had to myself was my bedroom. This is the location of my hobby nightmare. A quick doodle made in paint is attached of the room layout. Dude, you nerds, man. You nerds. I'm going to put this on because I can't not. The guy's done a little map of his room. Come on. Even I'm not that heartless. Here we go. Alright. There you go. There's your room. One day, I came home from work and, as an introvert, I quickly headed towards my bedroom for some much-needed quiet time. As I tried to open the door, I felt an unusual amount of resistance. Something was pushing up against the door with an intense force. This confused me. What could be impeding my journey? I pushed harder and the door slowly began to open. I heard a large amount of grinding noise as the ingress progressed. As soon as I was able, I stuck my head in to investigate the cause of the blockage. My cheap Walmart bookshelf, which was perpendicular to the door, had slumped over against it. I had overloaded the bookcase with the weight of my hefty collection of science fiction, RPG, fantasy, and wargaming books. But that's not the worst part. I had reserved the top two shelves for my small collection of miniatures, primarily an army of Imperial Guard and an army of dwarfs for Kings of War. The grinding noise I mentioned earlier was that my miniatures were being torn apart under the opening of the door. And the even worse part was, the door was only still partially opened. Can you imagine slowly forcing a door open and hearing your miniatures being torn apart by the necessity of your action? I was flinching the entire time. After I got the door open, I had to clean up the bookcase and re-glue the miniatures back together. Luckily, the damage was less than I feared, and the skill of my painting at the time and permanent cosmetic damage was not noticeable. Anyway, that's all I've got. Keep up the good work, James. Cheers, man. And thank you for your wonderful, shall we say, diagram here of your boudoir, right? It's where the magic happens in the bottom right, right? That's where you take the ladies. Anyway, I'll shut up. Moving on. Right, we have a more substantial hobby nightmare. Alrighty, I like this. Let's jump in. It is from Ian. Well, nice to meet you, Ian. I'm going to answer your other questions in an email, Ian. But I will get into your hobby nightmare first, alright? Cool. Alright. He says, Dear Northern Exile. And the way he's laid this out is very nice. Dear Northern Exile, or Mr. Northern Exile, my name is Ian. I've been a long-time follower of your channel, and I've enjoyed it since the day I first discovered it. Many nights I've spent listening to your voice, and this time I would like to tell my story. I also have some questions I would love to hear you answer. Please do so if you have the time to spare. Before we begin, English is not my mother tongue, but I'm going to give my best. With the help of the autocorrect, I hope you receive a decent hobby nightmare that is easy enough to read for you. I am not a good storyteller either, so please excuse me if the common thread gets lost a little. Whenever you have the feeling that you need to take the mick out of me, feel free to do so. That said, enjoy your tea, as I'll be doing the same, having my Yorkshire right beside me whilst writing this hobby nightmare. Alright. Alrighty. To your second question, right, I have tried Tetley's tea. Not really my kind of thing, right? I like the full-bodied Yorkshire. And I didn't know that Yorkshire tea did a biscuit or flavoured tea. I don't really do flavoured teas from big brands, right? I'll do flavoured teas from, like, people who do flavoured teas, but if Yorkshire tea do a flavoured tea, I'll be like, no, I want my Yorkshire tea as it is, thank you, you know? I'll email you back about the Grey Knights question. Right, the nightmare. The story I wanted to tell you and the audience about is about my younger brother. I'll call him Marvin in this story, and me and our Warhammer journey. A journey that lasts to this day. It is a story about our time growing up together and the hobby that strengthened our bond as brothers. Let me start at the beginning. What brought me into the hobby was a family friend who told my mother about a local store that sold Lord of the Rings miniatures for a tabletop wargame. I just recently had my first contact with Lord of the Rings. Seeing Gandalf sacrifice himself to protect the Fellowship from the Balrog instantly got me excited for the franchise. So it was that this family friend of ours and I were going into a store near the city centre called Games Workshop. To this day, I am a strong believer that entering a Games Workshop store is a hit of pure creative possibility, especially for children. It was. I wouldn't say it is. It definitely was, though. Nowadays, it's, you know, are you buying anything? No, get out. At least that was the case for me. The store manager was called Stephen. He was lovely and introduced us to the Middle-earth game and even let me paint my first miniature, Gandalf the White. But that wasn't the highlight of my day. During my adventures at the store, I discovered a book on the shelf. Wondering what this impressive creature clad in blue armour was, it was the 5th edition Space Marine Codex. The store manager told me it was a Space Marine, and that he could tell me more about it when I would return the next time. And that's exactly what I did, bringing my younger brother along with me. Our parents were very happy. We have always been very active children, and I know that can be very exhausting for parents. Us having something to commit our time to was a real release for them. My brother was as stunned as I was. The store manager was as kind as the last time I'd met him, and he introduced me to the Black Reach starter set that was on display. We played our first game together and really enjoyed it. I believe we were both between 10 and 13 back then. My brother got real sad when my Marines mowed down the first of his Orc boys, but he pushed on, eager to even the score, and so he did, ripping apart my Marines in one combat phase. He just won his first game of 40k, and I loved that he enjoyed it so much, at least in retrospective. I was a sore loser back then, and I don't enjoy it to this day, though the hobby taught me how to handle it. Right, there are a few big stories that we need to cover here, right? Number one, are you noticing the difference in handling of this guy's parents to the first set of parents that we had, right? There's nothing worse, and I'm very, very, very wary of being this way with my daughter too, right? Whenever my daughter likes something that I think is a good influence on her, I drop what I'm doing and I ask her to explain it to me, right? Literally, just, oh, what's that you're doing? What's that you're painting? What's that you're drawing, right? Always try and nurture that thing, because the minute you treat them like an accessory, like, you know, you just want them to just be quiet and get on with things. Dude, don't kill somebody's childhood. Don't do that, right? I get it. You can be curmudgeonly as a grown-up. You do have other things going on, but, you know, if your kid's showing an interest in something cool that's going to really bring them out, nurture that. You don't have to do much. Show an interest. Give 5 minutes of your time to your kid so that they can talk about what they find cool about this thing that they've got in their hands. That's what you want to do, right? And feel free to move on from there. It's all good. Anyway. We've just had a wonderful day at the store, and we decided to leave. I showed my brother the store Dreadnought that was included in the starter set one last time. To this day, the old Dreadnought is my favourite model, and it's way better than the new one. And we both agreed the next time we entered the store, we would buy Black Reach. Out on the street, somebody started yelling at us. We turned around, and there was a blonde bloke that was playing at one of the tables before, following us out of the store, declaring loudly that we were thieves. What? Confused, we looked at each other. I couldn't remember stealing anything. He told us he saw us taking the dreadnought and running off with it. He demanded to looking into our bags and we let him, still in shock that somebody had actually accused us of theft. If he would have just looked at the table for 1 second, he could have noticed that the biggest model on it was still standing there. After controlling our bags, Sherlock decided that we were good to go, leaving us without an apology. He may have just been worried that he may have been just a worried customer mistaking himself for a bit of a hero. But for us little children, it was the first negative experience that we had in the store, when we came to know the good and the evil of Games Workshop's customer base. As mentioned, we bought with our parents' financial support the 40k starter set and some hobby tools to begin our journey. Marvin and I developed a love for this hobby. He was more of a player, defeating me on the kitchen table every single time, no matter how hard I tried to bend the rules in my favour. His black sprayed massive orcs, chopping apart my quite well painted, at least for my age, ultramarines. Funny thing back then was, I didn't know anything about the hobby. I assumed every Space Marine had to be blue and gold. No, Games Workshop have that feeling as well, trust me. I was and am to this day more of a collector, painting and lore guy, and love the hobby as something to offer. I love to think that the hobby has something to offer for every one of us. It does. It does. We regularly visited the store, expanding our collection bit by bit, until both of us had amassed a big enough army to play the standard 40k games played in the store. I have to admit that to this day, I cannot remember a single time I ever won a game of 40k, but to be fair, I haven't been playing since 6th edition. I believe today's 40k lacks the depth for engaging stories on the tabletop. I do miss the different fight skill characteristics, making every matchup different, or even the different armor values for armored vehicles. What a beast the Land Raider was back then, with its armor value of 14, 14, 14 all round. That said, though I never won, I really had a problem with losing as well. After a while at least. Yeah, dude, that's something that hard games teach you. Especially 40k. 40k will teach you how to lose, you know what I mean? Either that or you become a nightmare, you know what I mean? We had made really good friends at the store. The closest to us was a guy our age called Chris, an obese child with a love for barely dressed elven women, namely Dark Eldar. Don't we all, man? Man of culture. Man of culture. He was always a joy to play against, and Marvin and him, being on the more competitive side of things, led to real exciting games to watch whilst painting, especially in the narrative campaigns that the store held regularly. With one of the store managers of my lifetime, with one of the best store managers of my lifetime, it was a blast. There were competitions for painting, playing, and creating models out of bits every single month. Marvin was one of the store's favourite creators of weird bit creations and won books, which he never read, but I got to indulge in. The atmosphere for children was great, and we had a great time. But it came to the day when that all needed to change. Dude, I need to say this before we carry on. Do you know how Christmas... Does 40k in Games Workshop make any of you feel Christmassy? Do you know what I'm saying? You must know what I'm saying, right? It makes you feel a bit Christmassy. It makes you feel like, oh, winter, go to the store, sit down, do some painting. It has kind of the opposite effect for me these days, because of the Christmases I spent at Games Workshop, right? They were miserable. The miserable times. They were so busy. And towards the end of my first Christmas as a manager, I'd pretty much sold my little heart out through December. And on Christmas Eve, all of my customers were well sated, right? So I had 1 or 2 customers all Christmas Eve. And it sucked, right? Because not only did I have to go to my girlfriend's parents' house for Christmas, and I'll be honest with you, they weren't my kind of people, right? They just weren't my kind of people. We got on fine. It wasn't my bag, right? It just wasn't my bag. And I feel really bad for saying that. But so not only did I have like a really bad Christmas to look forward to with me just making small talk with this family who acted like I was some sort of ornament, and were actually quite rude sometimes, you know what I mean? But like, you know, I'm sitting in this store on my own painting these models that no one's coming in to see because it's going to be really quiet because we're about to come up to January, do you know what I mean? And that really sucked. So yeah, those are my times. You know, Games Workshop and Warhammer is no longer Christmassy for me. I need to get that feeling back somehow. Maybe I need to go sit in a store with my own models and paint them. I don't know. Anyway. There had always been bad apples in the community. I remember playing a sweaty adult bringing his Space Wolves to the table. He couldn't stop talking about how great Logan Grimnar was on his chariot. He tried cheating all the time just to beat a child at a game of miniatures, whining about his wolves dying on the same battlefield whilst praying to Valhalla or something. Long story short, he won in a landslide, and though I love some of the Space Wolf models, I can't bring myself to like the chapter. I'm sorry, but I judge Space Wolf plays to this day thanks to that experience. I know there are great people out there loving their wolves, but it's definitely an uphill battle for them when it comes to me and people like me. Those experiences were few and far between though. Most of the other customers were great, and we would learn a lot from them. Socialising, having a place to create, laugh and just be ourselves. In the end, I believe it was all thanks to Stephen's cultivation of such a good culture, which slowly rotted away after Stephen left the company for better opportunities. He was replaced by Dave, a skinny creature from wherever. Dave was never a part of the community as far as I can remember, and he only needed months to tank the store completely. The once lively place where people would spend their free time turned into a barren wasteland of Games Workshop. Only the hardiest of customers stayed longer than a few months, thanks to killing off all of the campaigns, competitions, and other stuff. The store was less frequented week by week. A place that you could once trust, Stephen even allowed children to keep some of their models in the store, and turned it into a place of distrust. I had just recently started Warhammer Fantasy together with Marvin, building a Skaven army that I kept in the store. It wasn't a part of the display or anything, we just kept it in a Skaven box in the store. One day, after I hadn't been to the store for 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't find my models in the store. I was devastated, and I couldn't figure out what had happened to them. Until one of the other customers at the store told me. Dave had sold them. Not having confidence back then to confront Dave with the accusation, I just left. I didn't tell my parents or anything. I was just a confused mess, already struggling in school and within myself. The good times were definitely over. Soon after that, following the release of Age of Sigmar, the store in our town had to close. Surprise, surprise. Marvin and I had lost our spot to hang out and have fun together. This was our thing which we shared, our time together. We tried to go to a store in the next town, but it was quite a long journey for children, and so, slowly but surely, it died down. Dude. I'm not going to have a go at you there because you're a kid, right? What are you going to do? Right? Report them to the police. You know, you're a kid. You don't want to get into trouble. I understand, you're not thinking clearly. But, this is theft, my dude. This is like bog standard theft, right? Now, I've been on the other side of this. I've seen managers be accused of getting rid of, like, models that they didn't, right? That they didn't. I've been accused of like, getting rid of somebody's... What model was it? I think it was a Great Unclean one, right? They brought it in and they said, can I put this on the cash register? And I said, yeah, sure you can, man. I'm not going to guarantee its safety, right? I'm not by the register unless I'm selling something, you know? But, yeah, you can put it there, no problem, right? Lo and behold, it gets stolen. It goes missing, it gets stolen. And he blamed me. To this day, he still says I stole his Great Unclean one, right? For my own army. I don't collect demons. Anybody who knows me knows how much I detest demons, alright? I don't know enough about selling things online to even nick something to sell. You know, I don't care. Somebody nicked it and I was blamed because it was my store, sort of a thing. So I've been on the other side of this, and I know other managers who have been as well. But what this guy's done here is literally stealing. Now, I'm not sure whether he did actually do what this customer said he did, right? You don't know, man. Like, for all intents and purposes, I'm struggling to see where the motivation comes from for this guy to sell your Skaven army. Do you know what I'm saying? It's so easy for him to be caught. Why would he do it? And judging by his behaviour in the store, not a lot of people like this guy. So I'm kind of thinking this other customer's tried to smear him to you. I don't know. This is me reading between the lines, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, we were both growing older, starting to catch interest in different things in life. I started struggling with women, taking my first steps on that adventure's path. Marvin did his own thing. And I have to admit, we lost sight of each other at the time. That's normal, dude. That's normal. That is normal. Almost every woman I've ever dated who has a sister was estranged from her at some point. Right? Nearly every single one. They were estranged, and even if they're living in the same house, they're not really speaking for years at a time, right? It's normal, dude. Siblings. What still connected us was our passion for Warhammer, though. We both loved playing Total War Warhammer, which released around that time or a little earlier. I believe we were both struggling at that time, so I was focused on myself, losing track of my brother entirely. We lived in the same house, sharing meals and everything, but that didn't mean we knew what was going on in the others' lives. There were many things that were happening, and they may be stories for another day, but for the purpose of the story, I'll skip a few years to when we were teenagers, no more, and now in our early 20s. I started my studies at university, and Marvin started working for a railway company. We no longer spend time with each other at all at this point. Models from back in the day still decorated our rooms, and we had a connection to them, but not really to each other. There would be the occasional small talk, but that was it. It was my 23rd birthday, I believe, when we spent the evening together with some friends, having fun like in the old days. We drank and celebrated my birthday at midnight. On the way home, we opened up a little. He told me he believed that I was being a really shitty big brother, and I do agree. That he would have loved to see more support from me at times, but that he really enjoyed spending the night together, telling me that we should do that more often. I remember searching for the right thing to say, unable to find anything. There were just so many things that could have been said. In the end, I just agreed. I was happy that we talked at that moment, that we talked about something so meaningful as our relationship with our family. That was in July. Okay, cool. I'm going to have another drink here. Alright. It came in early September. What came in early September? Alright, I'm just gonna read it as it's read, right? As it's written, sorry. It came in early September. I was celebrating a friend's birthday, having a great night together with my friends. Waking up at my girlfriend's house the next morning, I forgot to mention her at this point. But yes, I found the right girl for me at this point, and I'm still with her to this day. Good man, good man. She saved me from losing myself multiple times. I drove home that morning, passing by what translates roughly into emergency counselling or emergency pastoral services. Their job is to help you in times of loss. Thinking to myself, what poor fellow had to get a visit by them on a Sunday morning? When I entered the house, I heard somebody crying in the living room. It was my father. I realised that we were the poor guys who had been visited. Entering the living room, I asked what had happened, confused and still trying to make sense of the situation. My father took a deep breath before telling me, Marvin is dead. I was in utter shock. Everybody who's ever heard such news knows it hits like a truck, and so it did indeed. To this day, I can recall that memory vividly. I never before felt such pain. Dude. Alright, I'm gonna leave this for a few seconds to have a little cough and a sip of tea. One sec. Alright. Yeah, dude, I'm really sorry you had to go through this. And it's even worse, right? You would think it was your fault. It's not your fault, by the way, right? It's not your fault, but, you know. Hot damn. Well, let's see what happened first, shall we, before we jump to conclusions. The rest of the day was difficult. informing the rest of the family, working through what had happened. The police later informed us that he had self-deleted himself, jumping on the train tracks in the early hours of the morning. There was nothing left but feelings of loss and guilt. To this day we don't know what he thought or had happened. The thinking goes that if we had just listened more to him and his thoughts, maybe we could have prevented that from happening. Dude. You know what I have to say here, right? There are two people in this relationship. This happens all the time, right? I get... It's been a while since we've had a hobby nightmare that goes this deep, right? But all the time in the past when stuff like this has come up, the person's always said, what could I have done more? What could I have done more? I think what you're doing is you're negating your brother's role in all of this. A lot of people, when people self-delete, they tend to take away their agency, right? They tend to say, well, if I could have, just spoken to him and talked him down, I could have, talked him off that ledge or something. I think you need to remember that there are two sides to this relationship, right? You're mentioning before that you and your brother drifted apart. You didn't just drift away from your brother also drifted away from you. Okay? This isn't your fault, dude. This is two human beings growing up, and you have, to me, a rather normal brotherly relationship, in my opinion, right? This doesn't seem very strange to me at all. So, this is not your fault. I know that's where you're going mentally. This is not your fault, right? Could you have done more? Sure, man. Sure. But, hindsight's 2020. Hindsight is absolutely 2020. This person, your brother, made his choice. He made his choice, and it was the wrong one, right? In my opinion, right? It's not a good choice to make. It is. It's the only choice you can never take back. Is making that choice. Again, by the way, dude, and I'm not saying this. Do not resent your parents, but again, you're not his parents. You're not his dad or his mum, right? It's not really as the sibling. It's not really your responsibility to drag your brother through life and make sure he's all right all the time, right? I know it seems like it's not, though. It isn't, right? He's an adult, and he has to stand on his own two legs. You do not take on guilt that is not yours to take on, is what I'm saying, yeah? It seems that's where this is going, and you shouldn't, okay? Look at it, acknowledge it, let it go, and move on. Yeah? Could you have been there for him? Yeah. But let's say it the other. Let's reverse this, right? You've taken your own life. Let's reverse it. Your brother's still alive, and you've taken your own life, right? I'm willing to bet that if you have that thought process in your head, he'd probably think the same thing. I should have been there more for him. Do you know what I'm saying? Only difference here is that you got a girlfriend, you got your life in order, right? Your brother made that choice, okay? Now, from what you've told me, he wasn't trying to get in contact with you all the time. He wasn't going out of his way to try and, oh, please help me and all that sort of stuff. You didn't ignore him, right? This is just two people drifting apart through life because life is such. It's life, right? If that's the case, you have nothing to be guilty about, dude. Nothing. And the worst thing you can do is let this define your life going forwards. Yeah? Anyway, let me carry on before I say anything else. Let me take a sip of tea. Alright. 2 years have passed since. In that time, many things have happened. I moved out of my house and left for a different part of the country with my girlfriend, and hopefully soon-to-be wife. Things are still difficult, but I am hopeful for the future. I still carry the burden of my brother's death with me. I found refuge in the hobby that we shared so passionately. Most of my collection was sold, except for the Black Reach. So my brother's collection I keep to this day, working on painting it as I once said that I would. Keeping the parts he painted as they are, and adding details to the parts that he left out. I will attach some pictures of said models. Once of my most prized possessions is a Space Marine that he painted up for me to replace a model that I had lost. A picture is attached I never appreciated his goodwill enough during his lifetime, so I must try my best to make up for it after him passing away. I'm still trying to get back into the gaming side of the hobby, but there is no friendly local gaming store here in the town that I live in. Okay, let me just do this picture first before I go anywhere else. Sorry, all you can see is wall there. Alrighty. And I think the Space Marine that you painted up for you is this one, right? No, apparently not. Nope. Okay. I'll try and find that on your email. One sec. There we go. There we go. Fantastic. Alright. You titled it something different, that's why I struggled to find it. There we go. What the hell? Where'd that go? Got it, there we go. Alright. We'll leave that bad boy on for a bit. Okay. I'm thinking about opening a store myself. Having listened to so many good ideas on your channel that I believe should be adopted. When doing so, I'll happily share my experience on your channel. My girlfriend and I started playing Blood Bowl together, and I believe a good cooperation with the local American football club would be a good idea for a store Blood Bowl campaign. All of that said, I hope you had a good time reading, and to you, the listener, I hope you had a good time listening. I want the takeaway of the story to be that you should cherish the time you have with your friends and family. Hold them near, listen, and give them a helping hand whenever they seem to need one. We cannot fathom the inner workings of man, but we can strive for the best thing possible. It starts with listening and understanding. Thank you for listening to my story. Best regards, Ian. Okay. Alright. So, again, I don't think I can add more than what you've already said here. Do you know what I mean? On what you should and shouldn't be doing in your current situation. Do you know what I mean? But, yeah, I think opening your store is a really good idea, but make sure that you get involved with people who already own stores. There are plenty out there. Many of them are on our Discord, by the way. So have a little talk to them and ask them how you go about setting up a store. That is the best thing to do, in my opinion. You know, network. That's all I can say. Make sure you get your name up there. Make sure people know where you are. If they don't know where you are, they're just going to turn up, right? It's going to be a lot of hard work. But if you want to do it, I suggest you do it. Because it seems like you've got a really good eye for the hobby and what you want the hobby to be about. And we need more managers like you, right? So, in terms of your brother, I've already said what you should and shouldn't do, right? Don't take guilt that isn't your own, dude. Acknowledge the pain. Acknowledge the guilt that you're obviously going to have because he's your brother, right? And you think you should have been there for him. Fair enough. Acknowledge it and then move on and do good things with your life. And I think you are doing that as well. So, well done to you. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I know that got a bit heavy towards the end, but that is what we are here for. We are here for Hobby Nightmares and to make sure that everybody's basically, you know, being heard here. So, have a wonderful rest of your day. I will speak to you tomorrow for some epic 40k rantage. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.